Let's keep looking at Haval H6 Lux model 2022 that I bought very recently, and maybe start slowly comparing it to my previously reviewed in great detail Chinese manufactured value for money vehicles. Is this car actually significantly better than some of the others that I have tried? Specifically, we're going to be loosely, not very detailed, comparing it to MG HS, comparing it to elements of MG ZST, because the car is slightly different and one-to-one comparison would have been just incorrect by definition. And we will be also making some comparisons, some throwbacks at LDV D90 that I sold recently before I bought this car, just kind of to give you an idea of what value for money you kind of get from getting a Haval vehicle, for example, compared to those MG vehicles or LDV vehicles in Australia at the very, very end of 2022. If you're with me on this, please give me a quick like so that I know that I'm doing something right and you're enjoying my videos, and let's talk about it. Alright, so from the outside, like I said, of course, at the moment it's still a honeymoon phase, so I acknowledge the fact that probably just because the car is still brand new and the color is lovely, I do think that it looks much better than the previously owned cars. I do prefer the SUV, more SUV rather than a car look of this car compared to, let's say, its rival in the value for money mid-size SUV market in Australia in 2022, MG HS. I do not think that it's a correct comparison to start comparing it in depth from the outside, sizing wise and whatever, primarily with MG ZST, simply because MG ZST, first of all, I said it many times in different videos, I do not feel that MG ZST is a proper SUV. I think it's just a slightly lifted car. It's a normal car, it's a normal kind of vehicle, whatever the category normal cars are in that are not SUVs. But it doesn't feel like one. It's a great car. My wife still enjoys it to an extent, but it doesn't feel like an SUV. While Haval H6 obviously and evidently does. It also is relatively large, so it's definitely larger than MG ZST. So, and yeah, I'm quite enjoying its looks. I quite enjoy its grille. I know that a lot of people maybe would be polarized by the amount of bling, amount of the chrome in the front, but I actually quite like that. I know that a lot of Eastern European reviewers in Ukraine, in Russia, let's say, where Haval actually made quite a lot of sales compared to Australia, that's for sure. They are sometimes, often you see people complain about that chrome that is susceptible to some elements of rusting because they have winters there, go figure. And after quite a few kilometers or after a couple of winters, they do often see some rusting unless they have special anti-corrosion coverage, kind of aftermarket coverage that's done to the cars. We in Australia don't need to worry about that kind of stuff, honestly, because unless you live in some extreme conditions like parking right next to the seaside or something like that, where the ocean breeze sprays your car with with the water and salted water as well, I don't think we'll have many issues with this. At least I certainly don't expect any. I love this chrome and I love generally the look of the car. Inside, once again, from what I've seen so far, I'm not a massive fan of the slopey front panel over here because I think it would have been more functional if it was more flat, but optically, visually, I do think that it's quite nice. Plastic is just a plastic that you would expect from a car to be. It's not particularly cheap, hollow plasticky sound if I'm kind of tapping on it right now with my finger here in the background. And all the fake leather stitching here is solid, is very nicely done. It's nothing too excessive, there are no highlights, there is nothing that MGHS I think even has like this kind of nighttime highlight kind of strip that highlights, that lights up at night. It doesn't have this, but I don't think I need that. I need functionality, I need ergonomics, and I need generally solid build. That's what I need, that's what I got from Haval H6. So I'd say if you are after excessive luxury feel for your money, I would say that MGHS in the top model, in like MGHS Essence model, which in 2022 actually has gained a few $1,000s to its price tag. It's actually more expensive than when I was buying it a year ago, even though the car, from what I can see in MG, has not changed all that much to justify that price increase. I do think still that MG HS Essence top of the range model with its real leather seats, you know, real suede kind of leather insets here and other kind of stuff, it does still give you a bit more luxurious feel of the interior. Also in this price category, Haval H6 Lux does not have the sunroof, while MG HS in the comparable price category, it has a sunroof. As I reported to you in my previous videos about MG HS and MG ZST, both of them were top of the range models. I do honestly believe that it's not buyer's remorse, it's not me trying to justify this purchase, but I can honestly tell you that in Australia, in a sunny state, somewhere, you know, in a sunny country, I'm not talking Russia, I'm not talking Ukraine here, having extra having sunroof with a very light kind of shade that MG HS had, not something that keeps the interior dark when you have that shade closed, it's an excessive feature. I do not think it's worth it. I think that there is a lot to like about the interior of MG HS, and I still remember it very fondly, including the bucket seats that was more sporty and a lot better, including the much richer steering wheel and other kind of stuff. But I do not believe that ergonomically, or from what I need right now from my life, from having a solid, nice, still rich feeling, but perhaps not excessively rich SUV, I don't think I need it. But if I had to rate here, I would say MG HS would win in terms of how much luxury you get for roughly 37,000 Australian dollars at the end of 2022. In terms of ergonomics, in terms of where to put your water bottle, in terms of where to put your sunglasses, in terms of how your hands can reach everything, in terms of the shelving space here at the bottom and here at the top for your phone, in terms of physical buttons as well as how reachable the infotainment screen is, it is Haval H6 wins hands down. Not LDV D90, not MG ZST that is slightly better than MG HS, not MG HS would win, like against Haval. Haval is absolutely just winning hands down here. It's such a nice, beautifully designed cabin. There are a couple of things that I could have changed. I could have made perhaps this central segment here kind of close to the gear shifter where my keys currently are, you know, and where my glasses are. I possibly would have considered separating this section permanently, not with this little poppable out, I suppose, separator for your cups. Even though one would say, well, this gives you more flexibility, Dimitri, yes, but also when you have a couple of cups, especially if it's large coffee cups full of liquid, or maybe 2 water bottles, I do not think that this thing is solid enough, this separator is solid enough to hold them properly in place when the vehicle is moving, especially when you accelerate, especially when you brake rather rapidly. So I do not think that it's good enough. I think it's rather flimsy. I don't think it will break or anything, but neither do I think that it will hold anything that's worth its weight. I do not think it will hold a couple of half a liter water bottles. I don't think so. So I possibly could have improved that, but that's me just trying to almost nitpick here and trying to almost give Haval a little bit of a hard time just to balance the feedback. But at the same time, why do I need to criticize? Why should I criticize something that I don't think deserves criticism in this segment of the cars anyway? I don't think I need to. I think it's a lovely car and lovely ergonomics. MG HS I probably would rate the lowest in terms of ergonomics and where to put stuff. Basically MG HS looks pretty, but it basically has nowhere to put stuff. MG ZST is a little bit better, and LDV D90 is sort of comparable in terms of the space here where to chuck stuff, but again, nothing comes even close to Haval H6 or Haval Jolion for that matter, because I reviewed Haval Jolion and how they designed the central panel here with the storage spaces and how reachable everything is. Haval Jolion is quite similar, by the way, to Haval H6. If I keep comparing these cars and kind of loosely comparing them and talk now about just interior space and airspace and how I feel as a driver here and as a passenger here at the back, I sat at the back kind of to give it a bit of a try. I can tell you that for me, for my needs, this feels just right, as one would say. Haval H6 just feels just right for an averagely sized dude who sometimes drives with the family here. But at the same time, I would say that MG HS probably was comparable in terms of giving you the living space, so to speak, here. I think MG HS is not too bad, and we're not talking about the boot space specifically in terms of the interior for the passengers. Yeah, I think it's comparable. I would say LDV D90 would win hands down, because LDV D90 is a 7-seater and it's a house on wheels. It's absolutely ginormous, and let's face it, its ginormity as well as the price tag are the two main benefits of owning an LDV D90 for a massive family that needs airspace for passengers and a lot of cargo space. So LDV D90 would win here hands down. Then would probably come this car. I like how this interior space feels in Haval H6. Then would probably come MG HS, and the last would be in this list would be MG ZST, because it's a very cozy car. MG ZST is good for what it is good for, but it's not for big people. It's not to feel packed in the interior of the car, otherwise you'll feel claustrophobic even without having any of those claustrophobic tendencies. Yeah, so that's what I would say about the interior space. As far as the comfort of the seats is concerned, I think that this Haval H6, let's say, is a pass mark. Nothing would compare closely to MG HS with its, like I already said, real leather, bucket seat feel, a lot better wrapping of your lumbar support, of your back. You know, everything is in place here as well. When I sit here right now, and I've driven it now a lot during this week, first week, I feel like MG HS is not maybe vastly better, but it's still better than Haval H6. Yeah, Haval Jolion seats also, well, I only test drove the car, so I will not pretend to remember it vividly to compare it now, to kind of add properly to this comparison. So let's just stick to this baseline of the cars, my MGs, LDV, and this car. So MG HS would win. Haval H6 probably would come second, tied with MG ZST, because MG ZST seats are also quite comfortable. I find them a little hot for some reason. They are vinyl, and I'm sure this is vinyl too, as far as the quality of the material is concerned. But I would say that for some odd reason, I do feel, maybe because of its structure, maybe because of how they are laid out, I don't know, but I find myself being a bit too hot in MG ZST, unless aircon is blasting and stuff. With all things given, with all aircon off and all that kind of stuff, I find MG ZST comfortable, but a little too hot for some reason. LDV D90, look, they are okay. LDV D90 seats were fine. The quality of insets of leather here, leather is everywhere. Obviously, in LDV D90, at least in my base model, it was, and I guess we're doing a bit of a disservice here to the cars, because we're not comparing top of the range LDV D90, so some people probably deservingly will bash me for that, but I don't think we need to dwell on that too much. I already said to you that it's a loose comparison of the cars that I owned, and they all fit into the same price tag. What I'm saying is that there is always an opportunity to go higher, but that also puts you into a different price category. Do you know what I'm saying? But if you want to stay around the ballpark of 36,000, 37,000, that's what you get. Now, electronics / infotainment / dashboard and all of this kind of stuff between the four cars. All right, so Haval H6 wins in my opinion, absolutely hands down. It feels more modern, the infotainment is designed more modern, it makes you feel like you are not in a last 2 years of a car, but a cutting edge kind of car. And feel is important because we live in the now, and you know, driving cars is not just about getting to the grocery store and then back home, it's also about enjoyment. Connectivity of Bluetooth here doesn't drop out, my phone is immediately connected, and I know that to people who driving maybe more established or maybe more expensive cars, it's like, yeah, it should be always like this, Dimitri, but it's not. It's not, because in the MG ZST and MG HS, the connectivity on Bluetooth for the phone was always dropping out. Go figure why. Same with LDV D90, it dropped out and then never connected again. MG ZST also had a very, HS had what appeared to be a fairly slow responsive chip here in the central kind of in the infotainment screen right behind my camera. That's why I'm pointing that way. Yeah, and LDV D90, again, you can watch those videos if you're researching in detail. Let me just put it very simply. If you are looking at LDV D90, you're not looking at LDV D90 for infotainment. You are not. Infotainment screen is wasted because LDV D90 boasts probably the largest looking infotainment screen of all of these cars and the most useless one by far. By far. And Haval H6, everything is modestly sized, but appropriately sized, and I think it's the best infotainment system of them all. Now, where, say, MG ZST in the top model and MG HS in the top model could pull ahead a tiny bit of Haval, is the fact that in the Lux model, at least in the one that I'm sitting in and the one that fits into this price category of comparison of the cars, it doesn't have a built-in sat-nav. It does not have an onboard sat-nav, this electronics. And we don't need it because here connectivity through Apple CarPlay and Google Android Auto works fine, as opposed to some glitches that I had, at least so far, I'm gonna say, that I had an MG. But fair where, you know, fair is fair. In MG, ZST, top of the range, and HS, top of the range, they had an built-in sat-nav. So if you couldn't be bothered connecting your phone and didn't mind waiting 40 seconds for it to come on and then slowly respond to your taps on the screen, you could get by, I suppose, with the onboard sat-nav. I would still, on balance of everything being fair here, I would still give a massive win here to Haval. Additionally, I will mention that Haval has probably the best looking camera, 360-degree camera, as well as the reverse camera that I've seen in any of these class of the vehicles. Okay, finally, let's talk about the boot space. Here, even though it's a Lux model, everything is rather simple. I do like the amount of space available. Optically, it seems like there is a lot of it. The loading surface, the level of the loading surface is quite high, however. It does feel like the whole car feels a little higher, which is a good thing in my opinion. But to load things up, arguably you probably will need to work a little bit harder. At the same time, once you have reached the loading height of the boot of Haval H6, it's a flat surface, so it will be easier to slide things in and out. And I'm not even bothering to compare how big it will feel if I fold the back seats down. It seems okay of what you would expect from a modern age 5-seater SUV. Speaking of 5-seater versus 7-seater, well, this is where LDV D90 you cannot compare to it. LDV D90 would win here hands down in terms of the boot space and once the seats are folded space. If you are so curious and you're researching all of these cars and kind of deciding where to put your $35,000, $36,000, $37,000 Australian in 2022, please check out also my urban camping setup in LDV D90, which actually looked quite appealing, but now it's not fate, as we would say. I will not have a chance to actually test it out properly. MGHS feels small for the car itself. The car sacrificed clearly the boot space for the comfort of the passengers, because passengers get quite a bit of space in MGHS versus the boot space that was very, very evidently sacrificed. MG ZST, since we're talking about here again slightly different class of a vehicle, in case you fast forwarded and didn't see that apology/disclaimer from me, I realize that it's a different vehicle, but I can tell you that for MG ZST's class, whatever class of the vehicle it fits into, I believe that the boot is fair. It certainly is no comparison to this one. It seems smaller, and it also is not flat. It's a bit of a drop. It's a bit of a, you open it and there is kind of a hole in front of you, so you can load it up and it kind of, the stuff will go down as opposed to slide right in. So it's not just the volume of how much you can put into the boot, but also how you'll be doing it. So you'll be loading it into something. Almost feels like a big bucket. That's what the boot of MG ZST feels like versus MG HS, LDV D90 or Haval H6. So on the balance of all things, my friends, once again to wrap up, I would say that of course I'm still in the honeymoon period, very, very much duly acknowledged with my Haval H6 Lux. I still love all of it, but as you can see, when it comes to comparing luxury effect within the car, when it comes to comparing size, when it comes to occasionally wanting to not open the side windows but open a sunroof, of course I don't get it here. I don't get it here, and I acknowledge that that is where Haval H6, I suppose, loses to those vehicles, the other ones that I had. But on the balance of all things, I'm still very, very happy, and I still can highly recommend the car. And we will see how it behaves, how it remains serving me well, hopefully, over the longer term of use. And obviously, I will be keeping you updated on all of those discoveries, other kind of things. Please talk to me as always in the comments down below if you are interested in something particular about Haval H6, and I'll be happy to focus video on that and talk to you specifically about that particular feature that you're interested in. And yeah, like the video so that more people can see it, more owners of value brands in Australia, people who are researching Haval possibly. I definitely wish the brand to grow more in Australia, because I think it is definitely value for money and better than some poverty level models, kind of like cheaper range models that still ask for almost 40,000 Australian dollars from you in the SUV category, from other more established brands that are just asking for money for what feels like just a badge. And I will never approve that. I will never stand for that. Again, with that statement, thank you for tuning in. I'll be speaking with you about something else, most likely Haval or something else value brands related next week. Bye for now.